Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of King Me Rev's Hype Podcast. This is going to be the craziest one I've ever done because, as you can tell, I'm coming to you from my cell phone and not from the computer I normally have. I have a special guest for you, and let me introduce, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, humans of all genders. We proudly introduce the entitled AJP. AJP, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for that wonderful round of applause. Much appreciated. I'm happy to be here.
Right. Yeah, no, definitely excited to have you on the podcast. I've seen you at a couple of places now. RWA specifically just pops out to me just because you guys had that 4-on-4 match where it was the monarchy versus the unit, right? So, and me being such a person, I should just say, that goes to chaotic wrestling a lot, I've been exposed to so much of the unit. It's hard not to just, follow in suit. And to be fair, the monarchy's there all the time as well. So, seeing your wrestling, the promo that I should say, JT Dunn cut on you that time, was so kind of, I don't necessarily want to say out of left field, but it was kind of a knee-jerk reaction for me because I didn't see it coming. But regardless, I am definitely a fan of your work, and hopefully get to see you at more places coming this summertime. There was I don't know about for you, but it was a pretty rough winter for me in my house.
The snow definitely kicked our asses this year. That is putting it lightly. I mean,
Right.
thankfully, we had plenty of food. It wasn't like anybody got hurt shoveling. Nobody's crashed their car. Everybody's good, but it was definitely an experience to say the least. I can't remember the last time we got snow like that around here. Like that bad.
Yeah, so exactly. And it was just like there was certain times where there were shows in different various places, and it's like, do I really want to drive 2 hours to New Haven for this? Do I really want to?
Well, in terms of the
maybe
wrestling,
maybe in the
yeah.
summertime.
I take a bit of an off season in the winter, so that didn't affect me quite as much. I say I take an off season. It's more the business kind of dries up for me a little bit, but maybe that's because I'm not looking for it.
Yeah, kind of a two-part thing there. I do feel like I did see you, and I know that I feel like you said you're at a gig right now, and I definitely wanted to bring that up eventually. So maybe we can just start with it. Um, you're part of the crew that rents um different, you guys, and I'm sorry, I just lost the name of the company. What's the name of the company that you worked for on the side
That is
that
R3
rents the
Renegade
units?
Ring Rentals. You want a shot of the trailer? It's over by the side of the building there.
Because I definitely feel like I saw that. I feel like I've seen that at many places, especially Fight Life on Sundays. I see that R3 trailer going tough. So always a shout out to them because you know that's a hell of a service, and there are so many wrestling, and I'm gonna make the audience cringe, especially my daughter when she sees this one, because I'm gonna have to start out with a Rev Dude bingo card and say that we are spoiled in New England. There's so many wrestling companies that exist here in New England, and I know for a fact that some of them do not own their own ring; they just rent it, and that's wonderful for you, right? It's got to be keeping you busy at times.
Uh, yes, especially during the summer. There'll be weekends where we have Thursday to Sunday all booked out, and sometimes we've had days where we did two different shows at the same time, took two different trailers. Honestly, I don't know if I won't say the majority, but it's definitely a good amount of wrestling promoters and companies don't have their own equipment, and it obviously benefits us, but and maybe I'm biased here. I think it benefits everybody involved because if you're the person running the company who I've my father, the owner of the RWA, longtime promoter, I've seen what that process does to a human being, and having as little to worry about the day of the show as possible is really key in order to, making your show successful. So with all that said, Book Renegade Ring Rentals for all of your wrestling equipment needs. Forget about it. We got it.
There you go. Yeah. And the funny thing is I had a buddy. I don't want to put him on blast because I don't know if it's going to come through. But I had a friend reach out to me recently and he knows that I'm into wrestling and he was talking about doing a bash at the beach for this summer and you guys were the first to come to mind, to be honest. I'm just going to be 100% honest. If anybody else is out there like, hey, what about me? Sorry, bro. I just had seen your trailer so many times that it was the first thing. So I told him that if and when he does secure the funds, I will give him the number and have him reach out so he can get his bash at the beach going. Realistically speaking, it sounded like it was more like the idea that he wanted to do pretty much a glorified photo shoot with it and just have people come by and take pictures with it at the beach. But I,
That's a
hey,
pretty
money
cool
talks,
idea.
right? So,
Absolutely. If he's
right,
in the market for a wrestling
money,
show by
money
the
talks.
water, we got that. Um, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah,
Exactly, exactly.
to your point about who else comes to mind in the ring rental conversation? There's plenty of people that have rings and rent them out, but you just can't find them. We have gotten messages from people in California and like Arizona and all these places looking for ring rentals, not realizing we're in New England. And I'm pretty sure it says that right on the website. But my point with that is if you Google search or Chat GPT or whatever, ring rentals near me, chances are we're the only thing that's going to come up anyway.
There you go. That's nothing wrong with holding the whole market, right?
You could
That's,
call it a
I mean,
monopoly.
kind of the dream, to be fair.
I,
That's the dream, though. And monopolies aren't even illegal anymore, so they took that whole thing down. So if you guys want to be the monopoly, perfect. But you guys are definitely the first company that I came to mind when my guy reached out. I was like, yeah, I know a guy. I know. I mean, I wouldn't say we're best friends, but I know a phone number that you could call.
hey, depending on how this
That's all I
conversation
know.
goes, we might be best friends. You never know.
There you go. There you go. And so, you talked about your dad. So obviously you obviously I don't have to tell you, and people are well known the idea that you've had a long lineage in the wrestling industry, of course. But like, what was it that growing up in that type of environment, what was it that made you want to actually go into the business? Because I've seen so many people who have, you know, children who and they, like let's say Brett Favre, he always said he never wanted his sons to be quarterbacks. So what was it that got you into actually going from watching your dad doing what he does to being in the business yourself?
It's a loaded question with a very loaded answer. Because it's just so many different angles to it. Because obviously, Dad had the company, and I watched him actually wrestle on top of running it. So there's two different perspectives there. But then there's also watching wrestling on
Right.
TV. Um, I never got to go to independent shows, and it wouldn't have been the same for me as it would have been for other kids because, like, I don't know. I imagine the average person thinks of WWE when they think of wrestling. So to go to an independent show as a kid, as a little kid, I think that's a much cooler experience than we as adults can really appreciate. And so my point with that, saying all that, before I get too far off track, I didn't experience it from that angle. And so what really inspired me was a few different things. Watching it on TV when CM Punk dropped the pipe bomb and became the number one guy. That was pivotal for how I felt about wrestling and how inspired I was. Um, and then of course, just I had always bringing CM Punk up is actually a lot more relevant to this story than it may sound because my I had never really just said, I want to be a wrestler. Dad let me dip my toes in it whenever I wanted to, or whenever he had a funny idea for it. So there was, at the time, and unfortunately, one of the two people involved in the story I'm going to tell has passed away recently, Chris Dozer. He was in a feud at RWA with Cipriano Abruzzi, who is currently making a comeback tour of sorts in RWA. And the words "I want that little punk" in a no DQ match just happened to fall out of somebody's lips. And here comes a little AJ Punk, doing all the CM Punk mannerisms in some I don't even I think it was like an old gym that we were running of out of at that point. But all 30 of those people were going crazy for it. And that was such an adrenaline rush. It was such an exciting moment for me because I think I was like 10 or 11 years old and I'm having a wrestling match. Like you tell I know at this point there's been plenty of little kids that have had wrestling matches, and personally that offends me. I should be the first and only. I'm kidding. Um, but that was really cool. And wrestlers, no matter when they get their start, they all get the itch that never goes away. Once you've had that experience, and at any level, it's not just wrestling. The any on-screen talent or even behind the scenes, everybody involved with wrestling, you can't just walk away from it clean. It's really hard to do. Um, and with all that being said, I kind of just, it never went away. My appreciation for it only increased. Growing up around, much of the RWA roster now, like I remember sitting in the audience, or I'm sorry, I was in the audience because I was filming on the camera, but me and a young Cash Money sitting side by side doing our own rendition of the commentary, watching our dads fight each other. That's the kind of stuff I think back to when somebody asks me what inspired me, because it was there was no Hogan body slamming Andre. CM Punk's pipe bomb comes to mind, but it wasn't like, okay, I see this, I love this, I want to be a wrestler. I've never quite had that. I've just always been around it and was never discouraged from doing it, we'll say. I mean, obviously, both of my parents would probably prefer I did anything else with my body, but it's not like they told me I couldn't. Very long-winded
Right.
answer. Excuse me.
See,
I tried to warn you.
no, it's no, honestly, it's the perfect answer because we, the average, wrestling fan doesn't get to have that kind of perspective. And quite frankly, that's one of the reasons why I really want to talk to you, because I understand that you have a different view on wrestling and on life than the average person would. The average person, it's kind of like, and the only way I can equate it to my own life is, for a while, my father and my uncles and my grandfather were actually a pit crew for a monster truck in the 90s. And I remember going to like my grandfather's house and helping them work on this monster truck. And granted, I was just a gopher, they'd be like, go get me the wrench. You know what I mean? I would just go get the wrench or whatever it was. But like the idea that there was a monster truck just hanging out of my grandfather's house all summer long, like it gives you a different perspective. So like
That's
I remember
just
going
so
to
cool.
a couple of monster truck shows. Yeah, it was awesome, right? It was awesome. But I realized that I was different because when I went to a monster truck show, these people were seeing things from a completely different lens. And I was like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like when you're a child, I mean, I was probably like 6 years old when when this happened, really. So I realized that that's when I truly understood that different people had different perceptions on the world. And it took me that amount of time to be like, oh, okay, this is why people don't see eye to eye, because they see the exact same item, but they have a completely different view of it. Me, it was awesome seeing the monster truck, but at the same time, I saw it all the time. I got to sit in the thing, right? So to me, it
Yeah.
was like, that's going home with me. I'm not worried about it. But I had other kids going like, I don't want to leave, and they'd be freaking out, and I'd be like, oh, I see, because they don't get to go home with it. Oh, I understand, and now I get it. And it's wrestling's no different. Most people like myself, I grew up just watching WWE on TV. That's a majority. My son's name is Sean Austin. I named him after Shawn Michaels and Stone Cold Steve Austin, right? So I have a completely different perspective. And this whole thing, my whole podcast, I just love exploring other people's perceptions and perspectives of wrestling, because there's no two people that have the same journey, quite frankly. and there's no two people that have the same understanding or comprehension. So I loved your answer, man. It was great because I feel like I was right there with you, and Cash Money watching, Davey take a swing at your dad or something, right? So
That's really what it
it's
was.
kind of
Yeah.
it's right, right. And I got the luxury of this past month in Las Vegas hanging out with Zilla Fatu for a couple of days. And I remember him talking about how when he was a kid, waiting for his dad, him and Dominic Mysterio were just in the back horsing around. And like that comprehension doesn't exist for me as a person. Like I would have never imagined just a group of kids in somewhere doing that stuff. But it happens all the time. And technically I go to a show tomorrow. There could be someone's kid in the stands, like just watching their dad. But you people never stop to think about it. And I feel like, especially now, as we've become so divided, we really need to stop and think and walk a mile in other people's shoes. That's just my opinion. I'm just one guy. I'm not, the Lord and Savior of the universe, but I just wish people would start looking into other people's perspectives so they can understand why people are different and it's okay to be different. So,
It's blasphemy to me that that's an opinion because honestly, that's just a fact as far as I'm concerned. Everybody, that's something that was preached to me a lot as a kid was, perception is reality, and it's 100% true. And
yeah,
everybody's perception of everything is different. And if you take 5 minutes to hear somebody out, it'll totally change the way you treat them, speak to them, you name it. It's just, the world would be a much better place if people were willing to have those conversations and have accept a little nuance here and there.
right. Right. And honestly, that's just what, when I do my podcast, that's the layer I try to go for. I try to dig a little deeper and get people to see you're not just another, wrestler, you're not a pro, you're not a celebrity or what, you're a human being and you have feelings and you have a life, you know. Heaven
That's
forbid, right?
100%
Doesn't matter
true.
if you do it on a small level or you're CM Punk, right? I mean, look at CM Punk. First of all, I love the fact that you love CM Punk because I love CM Punk. He's the reason why I'm straight edge. He's the reason why I haven't touched a drop of alcohol in many, many years, and I probably never will again. Um, he's inspired me. He's the reason why I have a brother that I haven't talked to in many years, and I don't know if you saw the documentary he had, Best in the World. Feel like it was
Many
like 15
times.
years ago now at this point,
Many
but
times. I love that.
and
I had the
he talked
DVD.
about right. Yeah, me too. And he talks about the idea of his brother ripped him off and how that's not a brother. Brothers don't do that. Brothers don't rip off brothers. And so when it happened to me a couple of years ago when my brother ripped me off, I cut him out of my life and I felt okay about it. Even though like certain people say, "Hey man, maybe you should make up with them." I'm like, no, brothers don't rip off brothers. So I gotta thank CM Punk for inspiring me over and over again for sure. So um but so where did you actually go to wrestling school? I'm curious. Or did you just train
Not
with your dad or
not to interrupt, it looks like I'm getting a low device storage notification, and I should stop recording, it says, but it hasn't stopped it.
oh.
Um, I don't know if I wanna keep ignoring that and potentially cut this off by accident, or what I should do about that.
So,
I just assumed this
so
was a
normally
stream.
the phone yeah, no, I don't know why it does it, but it's like 5 gigs. So basically if your phone's under 5 gigs, it says you have low storage and it doesn't
Uh,
work.
oh, okay. Well, then if we're good and we can proceed, I'll just answer the question. That's fine. Um,
Yeah, as well it'll kick us out when it kicks us out, I guess. Hopefully it doesn't kick us
okay.
out, but
Well, then I will try to talk fast. I originally what that first match I just told you about back when I was 11 years old, that was definitely like, go to the building a week early, talk through the match with the guy I'm wrestling, and my dad was very hands-on and involved. Um, I officially started training when I was about 15 years old with Brickhouse Baker, New England Wrestling Hall of Famer. Um, or is it New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Famer? Excuse me. Either way, Dude's legit one of my favorite people in the world. I will say it every time I get the chance to. Not enough people know, and not enough people put respect on his name. But that's neither here nor there. We've had a few different buildings with the RWA. Unfortunately, we lost them during COVID, and now that's why we're running different venues. But originally, we had our own spot. We had a school there. Brickhouse was the trainer at that school. There was just a who's who of pretty much everybody local around that time. You know, a Mike Montero would pop in, a Callan Thomas would pop in, and that's very much like that lives on in essence with the Gladiator Training Academy, where somebody like Cash Money is every week. Um, Past that, I've done different classes and seminars here and there, but I think I'm too open about the fact that I don't think I've had enough training, and that may sound like a healthy mindset. You know, everybody should keep training constantly, but um, I feel like I trained up to a certain point, and then I kinda, like, took my foot off the gas a little bit. Um, COVID was a big contributor to that, not the disease itself, but the lockdown, the pandemic, that whole thing. Because I graduated in 2020, so I you know, I feel like I saw a pretty what's the way I'm trying to say what everybody else felt about it, I felt too. I didn't get a special treatment. Um
Right.
But, that kinda derailed my momentum because I wasn't really wrestling anywhere. I stopped training regularly. Um, w Once that all cleared up and everybody was back to normal, we'll say about, like, 2021, 2022, I went back to training with Brickhouse again. Maybe I'm mixing up the years a little bit, somewhere around there. Um, he's no longer running the classes. Um, I recently did a stint with Ryan Waters, H2O. He did he seems to pop in here and there at the Gladiator Training Academy, but he did, I think probably like a good 2-month just run as their trainer, and that was cool. Um, I've learned from JT a lot, but I think I've learned more from JT as an example rather than directly as a mentor. I think the mentorship phase of our relationship is more of a very recent thing. And not to change direction on the topic too much there, but I think there's a lot more work to be done in the training department, and I'm glad to have somebody like JT actively helping me with that. And with all that in mind, eh, I'm saying all this like I'm not a busy guy with a million things to do, and everybody is. But I work a full time job. I do the rentals. I have a girlfriend. I just those three things alone take up anybody's schedule. Never mind trying to have a wrestling career on top of that. And as we talked about earlier, with the different perspectives on things, having a wrestling ring in your backyard makes it pretty easy to take wrestling for granted at times. And so I guess what I'm saying is foot's off the gas pedal, development's kind of on the back burner a little bit, but I look at places like Nepwa or the Lockup or whoever. There's a lot of great schools. We are, as you said before, we are absolutely spoiled here in New England in every way. You need a ring, we got it. You need a school, we got it. You need a show, we got it. We got it top to bottom. We have New England, and I don't keep up enough on the independent circuit, but New England is probably one of the top picks for like the most complete areas, regions. Like if I think we could call it a territory, if you will.
That's a valid assessment, to be fair, because there are, like you said, there's so many schools. BioPro got Worcester unlocked. Um, now now there's I think it's Pine Street Wrestling up in Maine. There's so many wrestling schools in the general area, and on any given
You
night
thought
there could be anywhere from 1 to 4 shows.
you're absolutely that always has blown my mind. And not to get away from the other conversation, I also wanted to mention Test of Strength in Connecticut and also Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling, two other notable schools in the area. Um, but yeah, so 4 shows on any given night, that is a bigger problem than people realize. Like, it's cool when we get out on the other side of it and we realize everybody did well, but when you're trying to book a show, or when I'm watching my dad try to book a show and he's like, "God, I wanted to have these matches and these 6 people can't make it and these 2 wanna make it to our show and then drive an hour and a half to be in the 2nd match on the other show," and it just the wrestling world's a crazy place, and it's and the people involved are even crazier for wanting to make it happen, but they do, and it never ceases
Yeah.
to amaze me.
Yeah, and I don't want to name names, but I've talked to a few people who've put on shows, and they've told me that time and time again. It's like they've kind of vented to me about the idea of, I really want to get this guy, but he's going to be over here and that's too far and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, I have
Mhm.
to give every single one of them the most highest regard, like genuinely. And I've said it on the podcast before, and I'm saying it today. I'm going to say it probably 95 more times for people like your dad or DC or you know whoever they're putting on any form of a show in New England, especially on a day where there's 9 other shows going on, right? I have to give you the most. I mean, just finding a building sometimes, right? That can be a pain in itself because of all the restrictions or parking, right? New England, we
Well,
are horrible at parking. Absolutely terrible. You know what I mean? So the idea of sometimes people are like, I've seen it happen so many times. They're like, I've talked to so many fans because there's a bunch of fans that go to the same shows over and over again, and they'll switch between different companies, and they'll go here, there, or wherever, and sometimes they're just like, nah, they're gonna run this place and the parking sucks, bro, I'm not going. And I gotta give it up to people who have to, all the people who have to actually book that and deal with all those headaches, right? Like, that's insane. It must be so tough.
yeah, I don't think the average wrestling fan, the ones that sit there and try to book the show for you online, have any idea what goes into booking a show. Like, my dad yells at me all the time for making suggestions, and that's coming from an educated opinion. So the armchair bookers
Right.
can hold their comments till after the show.
That Oh my god, those fantasy bookers can sit down. Maybe they can go make like a fantasy league where they just book it themselves or whatever. Go play in 2K26 and leave everybody alone. How about that?
Seriously, go outside and use your imagination, you know? Not everything is a form
Right,
of
right,
content.
right. No, and I can't say on the internet it's much worse than in person. I can't say that. I try to give people the grace at least with that, because I've seen so many wild things on the internet, but in person I don't it's not as bad, I should say. It's not as bad. So,
Well, yeah,
um
you don't have
it is what
bots
it is.
targeting you in real life. Like,
Yeah,
that's the craziest thing
right.
about all of that is like we are at a point now where you could get hate mail from things that aren't real. A line of code wrote you a hate message. That's crazy to me.
Yeah,
But I guess that wasn't the topic.
insane. No, but you're not wrong though. It's weird to know that you could go on a place like the internet. And, I'm 40 years old, right? I remember being in school in the 90s, and we talked about the coming of the internet as if it was going to be like the second coming of Jesus. Like, we genuinely thought that the ability to have all of the world's knowledge and information at our fingertips was not only going to make us smarter, but better connected, easier communicative, and the idea that we were going to be more cohesive as a people. And we could not have been more wrong if we tried. Like, it has been
Ah,
the exact opposites, and it's wild. It is
I
wild.
disagree. I disagree only because and most of this has been told to me. It wasn't something I got to experience for myself in most part, but the internet in its early stages was absolutely that. The problem is the wrong people wrote the wrong lines of code, and now everybody's got to jump down each other's throats to get a reaction for engagement or for whatever. You're not interesting if you're not complaining about something or making somebody feel bad or look stupid or whatever. If you're not agreeing with everything that you see in your feed, your posts get demoted. Like, that's not what the internet was about. The internet was about making cool websites and
Right.
and talking to people and sharing ideas and that's what humanity's about. That and the internet was just going to be an extension of that. And now I think we could say we're arguably standing on the precipice of something very similar with AI, but I think people are very aware of the dangers of that, conversely to the other thing.
So definitely want to validate your feelings, but I was very curious how the relationship between yourself and the unit started, and the because you kind of briefly talked about working with JT Dunn, but obviously there's Danny Miles and there's well, King of the OG's kind of in and out at this point, I guess, but depending on where you are. So, but but yeah, but but the question in my brain has been for a while. How did you get involved with the unit thing? How did you get pledged?
Well, again, another loaded question with loaded answers. I got a story for everything, bro. Um, and
There
then
we
that
go.
story has three other stories to explain why that happened. So I'm gonna try and give you the brief synopsis here. JT is one of the longest standing members of the RWA roster. He got his start with us, and um he probably hasn't always admitted that because RWA had a rocky start. It was originally a backyard company built on mattresses, and then it became a real ring, but it was backyarders in the ring. And then eventually, some of those backyarders got training and found other trained wrestlers, et cetera, et cetera. So JT was part of a lot of the early stages and development of RWA, and you know, uh, just that alone puts me in a different category with him, I think, just because we go that far back. But then there's also the added, I don't want to say caveat. It's an interesting note. He also lived with me on two separate occasions. Um, JT's been a part of my family, my mom doesn't like to admit that. My dad does. Um, um, I'm saying a lot. I don't want to say that we were super close because he lived his life. He was just renting a room somewhere. Obviously, he was friends with my dad, involved with the wrestling company, but this was when he was starting to really break out and go out and do, what he is doing now. And so with that, I don't know how far back exactly JT and OG go, but I would guess that them coming together in their travels and their journeys happened about the same time that I met OG. Maybe probably before I met OG, but regardless, I've known the two of them for a pretty long time. They've both been RWA champion, originally called the Triple Crown Championship. Um, and now I've held that championship as well. So you've got three former RWA champions. That's all something we have in common. Um, but JT was like an older brother to me. OG is sort of like, the uncle you see at Christmas and Thanksgiving and stuff. And I'm just kind of trying to walk myself through all of it because my involvement with the unit, I don't think it's been exactly what anybody hoped it would be. And that's on me. I'm not trying to air out any dirty laundry here or anything. But, as I said before, with the stalling on the training and stuff, I pledged with the unit or pledged to JT in the unit in 2023, I want to say. And I don't remember all the little details that went into it, but I do know that by that point, JT had seen me on the come up in RWA. By this point, like 2023 was probably one of my best years. Not in terms of physique and appearance by any means. I think I look straight up homeless and I can't watch any of those matches. But I had a fair amount of momentum and I was having some pretty good matches. Maybe it wasn't 23, maybe it was 22. Um, Whatever. Dates, numbers don't matter. JT had pulled me aside multiple times and he's like, "What are you doing? You are really good. You're the best guy here. Like you need to keep working at this. You need to, you know." He was validating me in my journey without me asking for it. And now, to go back to the whole perspective thing, here's a guy that was like an older brother to me at one point. He left the nest, he went away, he did his own thing. Now he's coming back around, even if it's just a visit. And this is somebody that I and many people think extremely highly of as a professional wrestler. And he's coming to me and telling me that I'm the best guy since he's left. And I don't really think that. But if he thinks that, I who am I to argue? Um, so they I'm going on a million different places now, excuse me. And I'm really good at talking with my hands if you haven't noticed. um that I would say that between 23, 24, maybe 25 or so, the whole unit thing kind of didn't I wasn't wrestling at Chaotic or anywhere else that the unit was. So realistically, you only saw us together once or twice here and there. So it kind of just, I don't want to say it went on the back burner because that wasn't the intention, but I wasn't as involved. I pledged into the unit and then it just kind of tapered off. I would manage JT sometimes. We had a few tag matches at a few different places, but it wasn't until when he came back around to RWA recently where it was like, okay, you're in the unit, but are you in the unit? Are you really one of us? Like, we said we gave you this opportunity, and what have you done with it? And I don't mean to skip over Danny Miles at all in all of this. I just don't have a long-winded personal history with the guy. I think the absolute world of him as a wrestler and as a human. And unfortunately, he's just not as integral to this story as we'll say JT is. Um, so where was I going with that? Because I thought of Danny, I didn't want to skip over him. Where was I going with that? Yeah, so they come back around, they help me with the monarchy, but AJP, what's going on? What are you doing? Like if all you ever did was watch RWA, those comments are completely out of nowhere. But for someone like yourself, maybe, or somebody that goes to plenty of other shows, or at least the shows that matter, like Chaotic, um, yeah, AJP, what are you doing? I only see you once a month, and I like what I see, but I want to see more of it. I want to see you get better. I think that's been a pretty general consensus on me for a lot of people, and JT aired that out in front of everybody, and he's done it a couple times now. And I think that the relationship is evolving as we speak. Like I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I talk to the guy every single day. I should be reaching out and utilizing this resource a lot more than I am, and I will. But right now it's basically make it or don't, show up or leave. What's the go big or go home? That's what I'm trying to say.
There we go.
Yeah, I proved myself as part of the unit by beating JT back in January. Now I've walked into the tag team championships because of the Freebird rule and OG, just leaving the unit. And we've also denied his claim to the belt because him and his nephew Cash Money just lost to us this past month. So me and JT riding high, representing the unit in RWA. Where that goes from here exactly, who's to say? I think everybody involved is hoping for the best, though, I would say. Did I answer the question? I like I said, I'm really good at telling a lot of stories.
No, it's great. I love that you really go into depth with everything. So, to be fair, that the fans want to hear you talk, not me, right? They want to hear what you have to say. They want to hear you think through it. So I feel like you're thinking through it very thoroughly, which is great. And of course, shout out to guys like Danny Miles, man. I mean, that guy's been around the block a few decades at this point, so it's hard. You know, myself, I didn't necessarily bring him up either, just because I knew there was some kind of a link between yourself and JT. I didn't know the specifics of it, but I knew that there was a better link. Especially, I was, not to say that I was shocked. Uh, I mean, at the beginning of this, I said I was shocked, I guess I was more surprised that he said it, um, as a like a story and an angle. And then, I mean, you guys had the match, so it totally made sense after that. It was really great. But that whole concept is just wonderful, because I feel like through this conversation, you've been able to, like, maybe, at least theoretically speaking here, take a step back and be like, nah, it's on. You've been calling yourself out, is what I'm saying. So you've been calling yourself out and saying where you have maybe not have stepped up where, JT Dunn has been wanting you to step up. But do you feel like you're gonna have to do more now to prove yourself to JT? Maybe that's where my brain's going with this.
I I proved myself to JT years ago, and I proved it myself to him again when we wrestled, even though I didn't win. Having that kind of match, especially when I've been pretty conservative in how I've talked about it, trying to be honest about not stepping up in the way I should have at different times. But I'm
Right.
very guilty of being way too hard on myself, and that holds me back more than anything. And pretty much anybody that knows me, JT especially, will tell you that. Like, coming through the curtain and listening to me talk, you don't want to do it. I'm so negative about myself. Um, and that it's not a good mentality to have. And I just it like I see the result. I only see the negative results. I only see, oh, I haven't
Mhm.
been training consistently. I only see I haven't been proving myself in the unit, or I'm not on these other shows. But everybody else sees the good I'm doing, what and all my potential and everything else, and they're wondering what I'm missing. And that disconnect is is the entire issue. If I would just give myself the credit while not giving myself too much credit, and put in the work, and just shut up and listen. Like, I'm not a know-it-all by any means. At least I don't think so. I'm not the kind of person to refuse advice. I listen to everybody that I can. Same as you, I'm a big believer in hearing everybody different perspectives. But I think being aware that you're open-minded in a way, like, shuts out some new ideas. Maybe all right. This is a very stoner thought. Excuse me. I'm trying to flesh this out here. I mean, just let me put the pin in that and move on. It will definitely take more work, more proving myself, but it's not to JT. It's proving myself to me. He asked me in a promo, uh, if I was locked in. That's what the kids are saying these days. And that's what I need to do. I need to lock in. I need to be the real AJP that everybody else sees.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're a phenomenal wrestler. So, um, and I'm maybe I'm just taking a second to process that whole thought here, just because it does make me ask the question: where did you get the entitled from? Was that like a nuanced opposition of your normal character, like your normal self? You're like, hey, I'm gonna take on this persona that's so opposite of me. Because
Well, no. See, the entitled answer is actually pretty simple. What it's evolved into is more complex and up for debate. But the origins of so well, you're familiar with Brett Ryan Gosselin, I'm sure. Um,
yeah,
he originally went under a different name. Uh, I won't say it in case he doesn't want me to, but he and I were a tag team in RWA, and we were called Entitled. Um, and it was literally like one match maybe, and like I managed him a second time. That was it. But he went on to do different things. He did a few more things with RWA, but the tag team didn't really pan out. The name stuck. I liked the entitled AJ. I was going AJ Phoenix more than I think AJP just rolls off the tongue a little easier nowadays. But I was just a brash young kid. My dad's the owner of the company. Of course I'm entitled, and of course I know that, and of course I'm going to say that. Over time, as I've grown, because I was calling myself that at 15 years old, 16 years old, when I was having my first official matches, we'll say. Um, and it meant that then, and it still means that now to an extent, but I don't think, I don't think the first impression of me is always that I'm entitled. I think there's two groups of people. There's two different general perspectives on me. There's the kid that looks like an entitled asshole because I walk in with a miserable look on my face and I don't interact with people and whatever. And you probably haven't seen that, and most people haven't, but I promise it happens, and it happens too often. Then there's also just the guy who's excited about everything, who has ideas about everything, who I've been told I walk in like a Friday afternoon, like that. And I think everybody has obviously good and bad days. I'm not describing anything that anybody wouldn't understand themselves here, but I'm a very much a heart on your sleeve kind of guy. You can tell how I'm feeling even if I can't tell how I'm feeling. And so with that, entitled, it kind of is a contradiction to the person I am or try to be, but in a way it's almost like a mantra. I was on Coach C's podcast a few years ago, and I kind of tried to dissect this a little bit. I'm entitled because I say I am. Like I being entitled is it's an insult for people. It's something you throw in somebody's face, like, oh, you're so entitled. Like, or there's just the fact that so many in this world right now really genuinely do act that way. They just, you can't tell them anything. And they think they know it all, and they think they're supposed to have it all and whatever. I do feel owed in the same way, we'll say, but I feel like I can work for it. And I feel like I've proven that I can work for it. And I think that's like the other side of it. Like, really, the entitled AJP is whatever you think it is. Perception is reality. If you think I'm just some punk kid who doesn't deserve anything and I'm a Nepo baby because it's my daddy's ring or my daddy's show or whatever, then that's 100% true. But if you think I'm entitled to something because I'm the hardworking kid that did it all to earn it and did it with a smile on his face some of the time, then you're absolutely right. That is what the entitled AJP is. And now that I've walked through all of that here, I'm going to run with that. That sounded really cool.
There we go, man. Looks like we're working it out together, you know. Um, so yeah, I mean, my drill sergeant said it a million times. Perception is reality, you know. And I think what Eminem said it best. I am whatever you say I am, right?
One
Um,
of my favorite songs, absolutely.
there's right, definitely a classic banger for sure, right? Definitely a classic. You can't go wrong with Eminem, I think. But you know, I love the psychology we're getting into at this point, because it's like we're really talking not just about you as a caricature or a character on a wrestling show, but you as a whole person, right? And really peeling back that whole thing. So I appreciate you going on this journey with me, because some people, maybe they want to be in character and they just kind of uh which is fine. If somebody wants to come on the show and be in character the whole time and cut a cut a promo and tell me about their next show, that's fine. It's absolutely fine. They're the guests. They can say whatever they feel like saying. So I guess what I am saying is that I appreciate your honesty and your genuine, sincere reasoning behind all the different things that you're going with me on this journey. So
A- Absolutely.
and I
I
could
think the thing.
genuinely
I'm
say not
sorry.
too
Go
many
ahead.
people do that. No, I was just gonna
No,
say not too many people do that. So I just wanted to make sure say I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate that you appreciate it, and I appreciate you. um, I think the thing with that really is that this is my character and this is who I am. Like I don't have an upcoming show to tell you about other than RWA or actually that might be true right now. But this is just who I am. I have no lies to tell. I have no gimmick to portray. I am the gimmick. I've been around this my whole life. You know, who else would I be?
All right. And as for RWA, we definitely send love for the RWA on this podcast. We've had Mike Ross on. I just did a podcast last week with Patrick Saint. So, and there's a couple other people that have been on the podcast. Their episodes haven't dropped yet, so I'm not going to start naming names. I want people to be surprised when the things show up. But, you know, Patrick Saints drops tomorrow, I want to say, and then after that, you'll see the some more folks that are showing up. But it's always and Mike Grassa, man, he thinks of RWA as home. He's at least he said on my podcast, I can say can't always talk for the man, but that's just what he said on my podcast is that he thinks of RWA as home. And when I was doing the trying to get him one over with the MLW champion, because I got to have a conversation with Killer Cross or Carrying Cross or whatever in Scarlet Bordeaux recently. I made sure to do a whole graphic where Mike Grossa was the RWA champion in the graphic with Katie. So it would have been Katie versus, I should say Mike with Katie versus Cross with Scarlet. And I thought it was just a great thing. But I guess my next question for you, right? And it kind of goes into a whole thing, right? Is that do you when you're um like with the next are you wrestling on the next show, and when is the next show?
So the
Try to
next
remember.
show
I think it's
is next Saturday, May 16th. Well, I guess that's not next Saturday as of whenever this goes up, but May 16th, RWA Wrestle Prom. Yeah, excuse me. Special door opening time. I guess I don't know. There's really no good way of putting that. Special start time of 6 p.m. We're opening the doors an hour early to let everybody in. We're doing the carpet walk, the pictures, everything, and make it. It's gonna feel like prom because it's gonna be a prom.
right. So and I was kind of curious about how do you know how that all came together? Like, is that my brain's been very much curious as to like because I've been actually seeing that becoming a thing lately, and I don't know if it's like well, what I should say is, like maybe on IWTV or some of the independent shows that I follow throughout America, more and more of those wrestle proms are showing up. So I'm just
This has
curious
happened
as to
before.
like if you were, yeah, I could double check what the name of the company was, but there was a company out west that was doing a wrestle prom, and I think it's next month. So maybe they stole the gimmick. I don't know, but I've definitely seen another company sign up for it, and I was just like, is this a thing? Like, did I miss a memo somewhere? Like, where did this idea come from of a wrestle prom? And was this a new thing for the RWA?
Well, you are breaking news to me here, and in the process, breaking my heart because WrestleProm was actually my idea. Um, at least I thought it was until I found out that there's another place doing it just now. Thanks for that. um, as I said before, I
Yeah,
graduated in
maybe they're
2020,
stealing your
so
gimmick.
hey, they could be. I'm gonna have to look into this, and I really will. But I graduated in
Right.
2020. I graduated in an empty auditorium, just my parents there. Wasn't a real diploma. I got my diploma mail ordered to me. Um, Prom was taken away. It just wasn't a good year, but prom was taken away, and that was the crux of it. I didn't go to junior prom. I missed it for a wrestling show, probably. And then I didn't get a senior prom. It just wasn't an option. and I was in a relationship at the time. I'm no longer in that relationship, so maybe it was for the best that we didn't have prom memories too. But that all aside, it was something that I had sitting in my notes in my phone for a long time, and I didn't really flesh it out, but I had the word sitting there, wrestle prom, because it's two concepts that you'd never think of together until you see it, and then it's like, oh, duh. Like, wrestling is just what happens when the drama kids have babies with the athletes. That's what it is. We are somewhere between those two schools of thought, and it's very high school. I've come to find in my adulthood that most things are still like high school, and it's kind of not for the best in a lot of those situations. But you're in a locker room, you're around people, like the sense of camaraderie is very similar to what you felt in school, if you felt that way about school or people or whatever. I know everybody feels differently about different things, but it made sense. It makes sense in my head, and we sat down with a bunch of people, me, my father, just a few different people from, I don't want to call it the roster because it's independent wrestling. Anybody can be on any roster, but
Right.
we had a prom committee, you can call it, and just tossing around what that would look like in wrestling. And that's why we're starting an hour early to let people in and experience it, dress up for it like it's prom, and it's by no means required, but if you still have your prom outfit and it still fits, bust it out. It's gonna be awesome. And even if not, just be like, for me, as I start to look at what I could do if when the day comes that I'm in charge of the RWA, and now that I am by no means in charge of it now. I have almost zero say in what actually happens. If I do have any say in something, it's a suggestion. But my thought process is all wrestling shows feel the same. All of them across the board. And they're all trying to do the same things with the same people. And I'm not questioning if it's good or not. But how can you expect any person to care about all of it? What stands out from that? And when you stop and think about it, and you look at something like WWE, they'll do everything but wrestling as much as they can help it. And that's the formula. But without doing, 30 advertisements on the ring, 60 commercial breaks, and 40 promos on the show that nobody asked for. There's independent wrestling is such a beautiful thing. It's so much more immersive than you would get at a WWE show, for example. It's more intimate, it's more energetic, it's more real. It's just what it is. So looking at things that are real that people feel strongly about and can connect to. Prom is one of those things that, if you haven't experienced it for yourself, like in my case, it's something you wanted to. It was put on a certain pedestal, and to bring it into our world for people, because wrestling fans, I think, especially myself, even as a wrestler, I think a certain excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm trying to find a safe way to say this. I think it would be fair to say that a lot of us feel like outcasts a lot of the time. And prom is very much
Yeah.
one of the most classic things there is. It's good in a way for certain things, but realistically, it's just another thing for the popular kids to have and for the outcasts to feel bad about. Well, screw all that. The outcasts have their own prom, and there's a wrestling ring there. It's kind of cool.
I love the fact that you put that together in the way you did, because I was a person who didn't go to prom because I never felt like I fit in with any of those people. Most people didn't like the idea that I was a wrestling fan. I literally shaved my head and I walked around all day acting like I was Stone Cold Steve Austin when I was 13, 14, 15. You know what I mean? Like, I did all of the crazy things that people, all the where WWF had every day. I, that's all I talked about was wrestling. And granted, I was in ROTC at the time and I did weightlifting and stuff like that. But realistically speaking, my weightlifting that I did, I was doing because I wanted to become a WWF wrestler. So most people, I had my clique. Outside of the clique, I was not like popular or whatever. Shocking. But the idea that you're like, hey man, I want to have this prom not for only for myself, but for us outcasts and outsiders. I love it, dude. I absolutely love it. Now I know it was the name of the company. I'm gonna have to look it up, and I'm praying to God that they did it. And it was just like a gimmick to them. It wasn't like a sincere thing. Like they weren't doing it the way you were doing it. I'll send you the thing later, and it's on Triller TV. I never watched it, so I'm gonna have to check it out now. But
See, this is my
um,
problem. I do
I
not pay enough attention.
no,
If
well,
I'd have
you know
known
what?
about
I
that,
got
I
to give
never
you
would have
credit
said it.
though. Well, I mean, maybe, but you're still giving a great experience to people who probably didn't get to have a great experience, man. Like that to me, that's beautiful. You could do that like once a year. And if other people are doing it, that's cool because those people were probably freaks too. You know what I mean? Freaks and geeks, right? I love
Yeah.
that show. I love that show to be fair. But realistically speaking, if you're going to a wrestling show, the mainstream probably doesn't care too much about you, right? The mainstream kind of looks at you. I get more looks from people no matter what, because my name's Chris Evans. So most people think Captain America right away. They just go Captain America. And I've gotten to the point where I'm like, yeah, well, he just pretended to be. He got to be tall, rich, and handsome, but he pretended to be in the army. I did it for real. So there, I got one over on him. But the truth of the matter is that even if that other company did one similar, right? It's it I mean, I kind of hope they didn't, to be fair at this point. But what I am saying is, it's not the worst thing in the world because you were trying to bring an experience not only for yourself, but you were thinking about other people. And I am one of those people. So I have to appreciate the fact that you gave a shit about people like me who didn't get to have those experiences because we were wrestling fans, man. Like, I have to give you all the props and appreciation in the world for that because I had a high school experience where I wasn't the popular kid. I didn't go to football games. I didn't do all that stuff. I didn't do any of that stuff. I mean, if people want to be completely realistic, some of it was because of the fact that I was so stupid as a kid. My son was born when I was 16 years old, right? My son was born, I was 16, his mother was only 15. Like, that was so dumb. Like, it was so stupid. And I advocate against it now, right? But and then when I graduated, I fortunately got to get out of school earlier. I was 17 and I went straight into the army because I didn't know what else to do with my life because I'm a 17-year-old idiot kid who has a kid, right? So the I actually said this to my daughter recently. Like it used to bother me when I was in high school before the whole nonsense happened because I like let's say there was a time I grew up in originally I'm from Lowell, Massachusetts, but my stepfather moved us to Phoenix, Arizona when I was about 10 years old. So when we were, my high school I did in Tolleson, Arizona, and I remember our freshman year they brought us to the Arizona State University campus, and I remember sitting there thinking to myself, that's never going to be me. Like we have a poor family that can barely afford food. I'm never going to be the kid who can do college. I can't afford that. Like I love that the experience that you see on TV where you go and you get to live on campus and just be a regular person. Like to me, I always put that on a pedestal because I was not that I thought those kids were better than me or it's like better people, but I envied the fact that they didn't have to worry about starving to death. You know what I mean? Like I envied the fact that those people could pay $150 for a stupid tuxedo and go dance around on a Friday night and pretend like nothing mattered. Like that's what bothered me, right? Like wasn't the fact that they were cooler than me and they thought wrestling was dumb. Whatever. That's your problem. But the fact that you're a person like you are out there acknowledging the fact that we exist is incredible. And it's not negated by someone else doing it, and it's not negated at all if somebody else thought of that as well. Because to be fair, we're all in the same crux, man. Like those
Yeah.
normies, like I say it all the time, the normies will never understand us, man. It's not gonna happen, right?
No, they won't. And I'm right there with you on all of that. I was an outcast in school, never felt like I belonged. I mean, I don't want to say I was or wasn't popular, but I could get along with or not get along with just about anybody, and
Right.
so it's not. Please don't take this as me reaching down to people that are below me to try and make them feel special. I am very much in this crowd,
No,
and I feel like everybody in it
exactly.
deserves to be represented.
Exactly. No, that's how I 100% took it as you realize that we wrestling people are just a different breed and that you were conscientiously aware of the fact that we didn't have the experiences that the normies got to have. So you're out here making it happen for us, man. So I got to appreciate that even more. Like I love it even more now. I wish I'd, you know
Well,
what I mean? Like, man, I do,
I'm just
honestly.
I'm just coming up with a nice way of putting that I didn't get a prom and I'm upset about it, so I'm gonna make sure it happens. And I'm doing
Right.
this for everybody.
Well, kudos to you because I mean, technically, if you really, 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 really wanted to do it just for yourself, it wouldn't be too difficult to like to make, people can have an intimate time by themselves or with close personal friends, but you did open it to the public. So, we get to experience it. And I'm sure there are people who they, there are going to be people there who didn't necessarily have the greatest time at prom, or people like me who didn't even go to fucking prom. And now they get to have a prom in a room full of people who understand and respect their most loved thing on earth, right? Because quite frankly, there's not too many things I give a shit more about than professional wrestling. Like if I cared more about other things, then I picked the wrong podcast.
Yeah, you
I
might
picked
be
the wrong
right.
people to interview. So I'm appreciative of the fact that you were thinking, maybe it started with yourself, but you thought about the rest of us, and you're bringing us along for the journey, and I appreciate that. And I'll make sure to fucking blast this everywhere I can so that people show up and they have a great time and they understand that it came from a genuine, loved place, right? That someone actually stepped out for a second and cared about them as well. It's
And
I
that's what we're all about with the RWA. And I don't mean to take too much credit for all this. Like WrestleProm was my idea, but it is still Dad's show, and I gotta
Of
give
course.
him all the credit he deserves for that. And he's always been about, like, that's why the RWA roster looks the way it does, with the people you may have not recognized or have ever heard of before, but when you see them at RWA, you get it because they're part of the family, and all of everybody matters, and that's just true for the whole world. But we really take that to heart at RWA. All of our fans, all of our talent, everybody around us, we all contribute to this, and we all get a piece in that. And I think my father is a much bigger proponent of that than I am. I can be a little harsh with my takes on things at times, but my dad is very, very big on fighting for the little guy.
Yeah, no, and honestly, it shows, and at least in my opinion, as a podcaster, as a guy who's gotten the 4 wrestling classes, it shows to me the idea that the RWA, you know, is in it for, at least in my opinion, some of the best reasons you could be in this professional wrestling industry for. And you can tell when you see um, I know I was super grateful. I'll shout him out. Gunnar Moody, he's a buddy of mine. I was super excited for him. I know he was super excited. We got the call up to be on to be in the Rumble in November, you know. So anytime I see, and he said such amazing great things about the RWA as well. And he was so excited to be there that day. And like once again, I've had Asana on the podcast. Me and Mike have talked about it a few times. The camaraderie and the love and the family perspective that comes from the RWA. It's hard not to genuinely feel that appreciation for it, and reciprocate that love back to you guys. To be quite frank.
And that's all we could ask for, because my dad has probably said it. My dad said it so much that I'm the one saying it now. But all we ever wanted to do was, wrestle in a ring in front of our friends and family. And we've gotten to live that dream 1,000 times over. And at the like my wrestling career aside, we've been able to give so many people opportunities to do something that they may never get to do at all, period. Give people a chance to start doing something that they can really take and make something out of themselves with. And through it all, like you said, the family aspect, well, I guess we both said that, but it's just you
Right.
can't you can't fake those things. You can buy a ring, you can hire all the best talent. You cannot put on the same show. You just can't. There's no. I was trying to think of a cooler, more succinct way of saying that, but really, it's just I've seen it 1,000 times. I'm in the ring rental game. I've seen it. I trust me. I know. Like you can't do wrestling without passion, and it's bigger than just being passionate about wrestling. It's about being passionate about other people. Because at the end of the day, that's all this is. We charge money for these shows so we can have bigger shows, not so we can get paid for them. Now, I'd like to, make it a profitable place, a really profitable place. We do well. But the point is, obviously, we want to make money off of it. But it's not the
Right.
whole point here. The whole point is connecting people and doing something real. It's too easy. Like we're having a conversation on the phone right now, but we're having a conversation on the phone right now because we met in real life. We've had shared experiences and we have memories together now. So like this may be the first time we've really talked to each other, but we're already familiar. We've already shared that together. Not enough people or maybe it's not that not enough people aren't doing it, but there's just not enough shared connected moments in life anymore. And if there are, they cost thousands of dollars to experience, and you watch it through your phone the whole time so you can watch it again later. That's not what this is about.
Yeah.
It's just
Right.
not.
No, and I could say I appreciate you because I remember in November, you were one of the first people to reshare all the pictures I took and the videos I took of the RWA. And
I'm very
that
inconsistent with my
always
social media, but I'm happy I could help.
no, you reshared anything that I shared, and you took a couple of pictures because I took a pretty good picture of the four of you in the ring when it was you versus you four versus the Monarchy four. And I remember turning to my daughter JJ and be like, "Oh shit, look, AJP, you put it like in a montage." I was like super excited because the stuff I do, I go to these shows and I record them and I make my own little edits and I put them out there. And there have been so many times where I ask myself, like, I have the same doubts and fears all the time. I sit here and I just say, "You're an idiot. No one gives a shit. No one gives a shit. Why are you doing this? You're an idiot. No one cares." And then every once in a while, you get somebody who, like you, who reshares your stuff, and it's like, well, fuck, it was worth it then. What was, you know, maybe the expectations were too high or whatever, but the idea that I went to a show, I had a great time. I got to see guys. I got to talk to Rich Palladino. He's the GOAT, right? I got to talk to Rich Palladino at that show. He's
Love
the
that
GOAT.
guy.
Um,
Nothing but good
I
things to
love,
say about him.
yeah. Honestly, he's like my Palladino is like my cursor because like if you don't like Palladino, there's like something wrong with you because there's just nothing wrong with Palladino in my opinion. So
Literally.
somebody's like, I don't like that guy. I'm like, okay, so you need to get like 72 feet away from me, bro, because you're a weirdo, right? But RWA has great shows, and the fact that I was able to be there and then interact with some talent. I got a very, very good video of Milo Mira, the POGO, jumping around in the place, and then the fact that you shared my stuff. It's like, all right, I may not have a million billion fans because I have a couple of friends who have a a thing that took off and they had like 100,000 views, and I was like, wow, that's great,
Wow.
good for you, bro. Like so honestly, genuinely, like there's no shade, no no smoke, genuinely happy for that guy. So then it makes me think like, shit, I'm an idiot. I'm not getting 100,000 views. What I'm doing wrong. But then I have, I might only have 300 followers, but 250 of them are either wrestling companies or wrestlers. And every once in a while, somebody will reach out and be like, "Hey, man, you recorded this show. Do you still have that video? Because I want it for my own things." And I always say, "Yeah, 100%. If I recorded or took a picture, as far as I'm concerned, it's your video. You can always just take it from me, man. No problem. No worries at all." You know what I mean? Like I send it to people all the time. It's always wonderful. So, um, but yeah, man, I feel like this has been a love fest. If anything, we've gone through a ride together, man.
You know, it's
I
all
feel
it's
like
all love,
I,
brother.
it's for real. I was telling my daughter earlier about that comedians in cars getting coffee. I feel like I could have just set up a couple of GoPros on the dashboard. We just drove around town and just fucking hammered it out really quick. I think that would have been great. Um,
You know,
but
yeah.
yeah, so uh, and maybe I should ask one more question before we take it home. But um, my curiosity at this point now is there has there ever been a talk about the future of the RWA? Like, do you want to take your dad's mantle eventually? Like, what does that look like for you at least?
I think we've kind of touched on it a lot throughout the what we've talked about here today. I think that's definitely, you know, 100% in the cards. Yeah, I say definitely and then go and say 100%. You know, those two things completely contradict each other, dummy.
Right.
Um, yes, I not only see myself, the ball is rolling on that transition process. That doesn't mean I'm calling the shots. That doesn't mean I get to put the championship on myself and beat everybody because that's not how wrestling works. Um,
Mm.
at least not when it's good.
Right.
So I can't really put a timetable on it. I can't really tell you how it looks or how it's gonna play out exactly. But ideas like WrestleProm making it, you know, to the final cut, we're having that show. That was my idea, and now Dad's doing it. Like that it's happening. We're there. Um, I think part of the hesitation for me anyway, we're not there yet. Dad's by no means ready to give it up. And you know, I'm not ready to be the one guy in charge. And honestly, I don't think there can be one guy in charge. And I say guy, it could be a woman. I'm, you know, gender neutral term.
Right.
Um,
Of
but
course.
I think it's a team. I think me and my dad are both on that team. I I've been working. So I say I haven't been really training as consistently as much as I used to. Whatever the in-ring stuff may have been put aside to some extent, but my mind has very much been on business in general. The ring rental thing. You know, Dad was always renting rings out. It's always been it's part of owning a ring in general, no matter who you are. But I think the more there's a plan for professional growth. I don't want to just be a company. I don't want to just be an indie league. Like we can really do this to whatever extent that means. Um, you know, I'm not saying board of directors, suit and ties, Wall Street, none of that. That would defeat the purpose of generally everything I've talked about today. But um I think it's more from a top-down organization level, getting the stress off of Dad's shoulders to some extent, finding the right people to build a team with, and just seeing where that level of thinking can go. I don't think that any of that really answers the question. I think I'm going too far out of left field now.
No, I could, because you know what? Like, I think too many people would assume that I'm trying to get some kind of definitive answer as to when that would happen. And honestly, quite frankly, I'm just more like, let's keep the party going, right? It would just be terrible if, let's say, you know, heaven forbid, 20 years from now, something happens and then RWA just shuts down forever. That would be terrible. And the fact that we said all these wonderful, amazing things about the RWA for the past like 2 hours, I think we're at now, right?
Wow.
I would hate for it not for the torch not to be passed on, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, so what you said was actually the perfect answer, you know. It's there's nothing definitive, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. And once again, if you guys are you're being so conscientious that you're thinking about people in a wrestle prom, like, yeah, I'd love for it to you be in whatever capacity you feel best, right? It's your life. You do what you want, right? So I can't tell people what to do. I'm not one of those fantasy booker guys, right? But the idea of making sure that the party doesn't stop, right? That's really what it comes down to, because I know it would probably break a lot of hearts, honestly, if the RWA just disappeared someday, right? So it
And
just that's realistically speaking an answer I was looking for. Like, no, we're gonna keep the party going. Sweet, perfect. If
yeah,
you don't
so
want to if you don't
that's the
know the
definitive
logistics yet,
answer
that's
I can
great.
give
That's
you.
fine.
That's the
Perfect.
definitive answer
That's
that I can give you is that it will happen. I just don't know when. I will be the guy in
right.
charge someday.
and and that's great, and that's great, because like, nobody wants to force people out, nobody wants to run in. That stuff
God
takes
no.
time. Like, so many people think just because they watched it on TV they can do it. Let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. Just because you watched it on TV one time, go hit those ropes. Go hit those ropes a few times. Take your first back bump in the middle of that ring. Tell me how easy it is then. Okay, tell me how easy it is, because you could be the armchair quarterback of the year, and then you hit those ropes for the first time. And let me tell you, when I showed up with those black and purple, it was purple. My whole
Oh.
right side was purple. Okay, black and purple. I saw them as a badge of honor. I saw it as a privilege to get the shit kicked out of me. I'm gonna be honest. I took it as a privilege. But when I showed the pictures to, like, coworkers and friends and family members, my mom thought I was a lunatic. She was like, think I need to get this kid locked into an insane asylum, right? This guy has lost his freaking mind. He's getting the crap kicked out of him, and he's loving it for some reason. I don't understand what's wrong with him. Lock him up, right? And that's fine. I understand the normies will never get it, right? That seems to be the theme of the day. The normies will never understand it. But I would
The
love for a
normies will never
wrestling fan who
understand.
thinks it's gonna be the tagline. Normies will never understand. It's gonna have like a pointing session. But those armchair quarterbacks, man, as much as we want you to watch wrestling, trust me, it's not as easy as it looks, and there's never a clear-cut answer for any of this stuff. There's never.
And you don't
And
hate
if
it as much as
anybody's
you say you do either. Like let's just say that.
right,
You were told to
exactly.
hate this
You
by
wouldn't come
somebody on
back.
Twitter.
Exactly. The only reason we've been so conditioned, with all due respect, the only reason we've been so conditioned to think that wrestling has clear-cut answers is because all of the documentaries clean up the truth. Let's be honest. All the
Oh,
wrestling
100%.
documentaries sit there and say, "Oh, well, this happened because this person made this distinct decision and that's why it came." And I can tell you from experience watching anything AEW, WWE, TNA, WCW, most of that stuff was by accident. They didn't really think it was going to be the end all be all of existence. It just happened to work. They threw 1,000 things at the wall and one stuck, and they're like, "Yeah, I meant to do that." You know what I mean? So it happens
Exactly.
every single time, man. They throw a billion things at the wall. Somehow there's a pencil still sticking from the ceiling, and they're like, "Yep, I'm a wizard. I did it. I did it." All right. Well, I know we both have things to roll on to, so I don't want to take up way too much more of your time, but I just wanted to genuinely say that I appreciated this conversation. Um, and I hope everyone shows RWA some love. I'm definitely going to make sure to put out at least the content about the Wrestle Prom, to make sure people are well conscientiously aware of the decisions that you have made. And hopefully this gives people some great insight into your thought processes. So, yeah, thank you so much for being here today, for sure.
Well, thank you for having me. It was great to talk to you. I hope I didn't break anybody's screens looking like like an unkempt version of AJP without using any disparaging language. Hope I didn't bore anybody with my
Right.
long-winded tangents.
Nah, I think they were great answers, to be fair. But then again, I always make the show that I want to listen to. So, you know what I mean? If you're
That's the
gonna
right way
make
to do
something,
it.
you should at least make it, and you should at least right, exactly, exactly. So, um, the next episode, I believe, is going to be with the Wing Dragon Dustin Wen, guys. So for anybody else who is coming along and wondering what the next episode, that is who is on the docket. Let's hope it goes through. And for everybody else, and AJ, you guys have a great day. Peace.